Have you ever looked at a wedding bouquet? I mean, all that perfect color, that fleeting beauty, and just thought, this should last forever.
Right. But of course, flowers are designed to do the exact opposite.
Exactly. They are, inherently temporary. And this tension, this pull between the ephemeral nature of a perfect floral arrangement and the need for a durable, lifelong memory. That's exactly what we're diving into today.
Yeah, and we're moving way beyond just, throwing some dried flowers into a dusty vase. Our mission for you today is to get you well-informed and fast on how to turn that fleeting floral moment into a durable, thoughtful, and, well, professional gift.
So we're covering the whole strategy here.
The entire strategy. The preservation science, the artistic options, the surprising real-world cost drivers, and, I think most importantly, the practical high-stakes logistics you need to actually pull this off.
And we have sources here that really break down how the pros manage this process, how they take something that's biologically temporary and give it this lasting cultural and emotional significance.
The core idea, really, is that preservation. Whether you're pressing the flowers or encapsulating them in resin or even using freeze-drying techniques,
Yeah.
it's fundamentally about arresting biological decay.
Arresting decay. I like that.
You're stabilizing everything, the petals, the stems, the whole structure, so that those visual triggers can continue to sustain a really powerful emotional connection long after, the confetti is settled.
Okay, let's unpack that. This idea of emotional value. A fresh bouquet is beautiful for the day, sure, but why does a preserved piece? Why does it endure in a way that feels so much more significant? It sounds a little abstract.
It's not, though. It's rooted in what we call emotional longevity. A fresh bouquet creates a memory, but a preserved piece, it actually sustains the memory. It acts as a memory anchor.
A memory anchor.
Think about it. Once the day is over, you're mostly relying on photos. But a preserved flower is. It's a tactile, three-dimensional object that's tied directly to that moment.
Can you give me an example? I mean, seeing a specific preserved ribbon or the exact shade of a rose, does that really trigger a deep memory, or is it just, good marketing?
Oh, it's very real.
No.
And it's often surprising. The tactile and visual features, the colors that might have faded just a bit, the unique texture of a petal, these are all potent cues. We had a client who said the sight of one specific preserved thistle in her piece, it immediately brought back the memory of her grandfather adjusting his tie right before the ceremony, just because that bloom was in the boutonnieres.
Wow.
Yeah, it reawakens these specific details that the mind might have otherwise, categorized as lost.
So it's not just a beautiful decoration. It's a physical conduit to the memory that fights against the natural decay of our own recollection.
Exactly, and that's where the practical benefit of sort of heirloom potential comes in.
Yeah.
It helps people pass narratives to future generations. A personal, intimate moment becomes a tangible family memory.
And when you say the mechanism is about stabilizing the sensory elements, are we talking about complex chemicals, or is it more of a physical process?
It's mostly physical. It's focused on water removal and stabilization. You significantly reduce the moisture dehydration, and then you lock in that structure, often with a sealant or a polymer. And when you combine that with other artifacts like lace from the dress or bits of written vows,
You're just adding more layers to that memory anchor.
precisely, you dramatically increase its mnemonic power.
The why is definitely clear. So let's move to the final product. Because if I'm giving this as a gift, the format has to match the recipient's personal style, their lifestyle.
Absolutely. The format has to align with whether they prefer, wall art, tabletop decor, or something more subtle and wearable.
So what are the main categories?
Generally break it down into 4 distinct groups, and each one emphasizes a different style of display.
Okay, give us the breakdown.
At one end, you have framed pressed flowers. Think elegant, two-dimensional displays. They look a lot like classic botanical prints. Very formal, very delicate.
And then the total opposite of that would be the modern, durable pieces.
Yes, that's resin art. Things like large blocks, coasters, paperweights. The emphasis here is on durability and total resistance to dust and humidity. Great for high-traffic areas.
And then there are the more personal items.
Right. Number 3, flower jewelry. These are subtle, wearable pendants or rings, often with just a single petal. They're perfect for a daily kind of private remembrance.
And the last one.
The theatrical presentation, shadow boxes. These are deep, three-dimensional displays that combine the full-volume flowers with other mementos fabric, photos, to create a much richer, multi-layered story.
I want to focus on the aesthetics of the two main display formats, the pressed art versus the 3D resin piece. They seem to cater to totally different tastes.
They really do. With pressed bouquets, the flowers are flattened over time and then meticulously mounted between glass and archival matting. And the custom framing choices here are, well, they're crucial.
What do you mean by crucial?
You have to specify UV protective glazing. That filters out the light rays that cause color to fade. And you need archival matting. That's acid-free material that won't yellow or degrade the flowers over decades. It's the gold standard.
And resin is the complete contrast. It's all about embracing the three dimensions.
Exactly. Resin art is about encapsulating the flowers in clear polymer. It creates this glossy, jewel-like preservation that highlights every single detail. They're functional, super resistant to dust and moisture, and suit modern designs.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me because the choice of method determines everything, right?
Yeah.
Cost, longevity, how it looks.
This is the critical part of the strategy. You need to understand the trade-offs. Let's do a quick comparison of the four main methods: pressing, resin, freeze-drying, and good old air drying.
Let's start with the classic pressing.
Pressing is typically low to moderate in cost. No complex machinery. The longevity is very long if you use that archival framing we talked about. It's best for that flat, classic botanical look.
Now, resin, the functional favorite.
Resin is more moderate to high in cost. That's mostly due to the polymer and the labor involved. It's highly durable, water-resistant, perfect for things like trays or bookends. Longevity is excellent. Just keep it out of direct sun.
And now the high-end option, the most lifelike result, freeze-drying.
That's freeze-drying. This is high cost, sometimes significantly so. It needs specialized lab equipment. But the trade-off is unbeatable shape and color retention. It keeps the flower's original volume completely.
Truly museum quality.
It is. It's the top choice for reproducing a lifelike, full 3D bouquet. Think peonies, garden roses.
And finally, the DIY method we all know.
Air drying. Low cost, basically zero, but you get a very rustic, brittle look. The flowers degrade over time, especially with humidity. It's fine for a certain vintage style with sturdy stems like lavender.
I'm a bit hung up on that 24 to 48 hour rule that professionals always stress. What if the couple's on their honeymoon? What happens if they send the bouquet a week late? Is the whole thing just a bust?
I mean, that is the complication. It separates the successful keepsake from the disappointing one. If the flowers are delayed a week, they start to mold, wilt, the colors shift, reds turn blue, whites turn brown.
So if the flowers arrive all wilted, that makes the whole preservation process much harder.
It dramatically changes the results, yes. If the material is too degraded, freeze-drying might not retain the original volume, pressing might lead to spotting. That 24 to 48-hour window is critical because you're locking in the fresh structure. You're not reversing damage.
Let's talk more about freeze-drying. If you want that original volume, you pay the premium.
Yeah.
What makes that process so different?
It's all done in lab-grade vacuum chambers. It uses a process called sublimation. So you know how ice usually melts into liquid water?
Yeah.
Sublimation is where frozen moisture turns directly into vapor, skipping the liquid stage entirely. This is what maintains the structural integrity of the petals right down to the cellular level. It's the only way to get that truly lifelike presence.
And the resin workflow? It sounds like you can't just, drop a fresh flower into a vat of polymer.
Oh, absolutely not, no. Resin requires intensive prep. First, the flowers have to be cleaned and dehydrated to prevent clouding or mold later on. Then, you pour the polymer in multiple, very thin layers over several days.
Why in layers?
It's essential to manage the heat from the curing process and to avoid trapping air bubbles, which would ruin the clarity. The final result is a non-porous, scratch-resistant, stable form.
Okay, let's pivot from the technical side to the practical steps for someone planning this as a gift. What are the logistics and realistic timelines?
Like we stressed, immediate action is key. Preservation really should start within that 24 to 48 hours. If the wedding is on a Saturday, that bouquet needs to be in transit by Monday morning, latest.
That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen, shipping something so delicate.
It requires a very specific workflow. First, preparation. You gently remove excess moisture, trim the stems, but keep the wrapping loose. You should also label any priority elements, a specific heirloom flower.
Okay.
Next, packaging. Use vented, moisture-resistant wrapping in a sturdy corrugated box with lots of padding. And finally, shipping has to be fast. Overnight or 2-day guaranteed with tracking and insurance.
And how long is the recipient waiting for this? It sounds like we're measuring in months, not weeks.
You absolutely are. Resin pieces need several weeks just to cure and polish. Freeze drying plus framing can take 10 to 12 weeks, easily. If you add personalization, like detailed engraving or mixed media layouts, you could be looking at 3 or even 4 months.
Let's talk about those cost drivers because the price can swing from a couple $100s to well over 1,000.
But the preservation method is the main driver. Freeze drying is always premium. Beyond that, you have size and complexity. A big bridal bouquet is way more labor than a small posy.
And the materials, I assume?
Framing and materials, absolutely. Archival glass, hardwood frames, they all raise the price significantly compared to standard stuff. And then there's customization labor. Detailed engraving, jewelry settings, intricate layouts. They add substantial cost and time.
So if someone is going to all this trouble, they probably want to maximize that sentimental value. What are the best personalization strategies to really elevate the gift?
The most effective strategy is what we call mixed mementos. You create a narrative by combining the flowers with other artifacts.
Like what?
A photo from the day, a fragment of ribbon, a piece of the invitation, even handwritten vows, usually in a deep shadow box. It creates a whole story. But a crucial consideration here is conservation. You must use acid-free materials to protect any delicate paper or fabric.
Right. And the frame itself matters too.
Of course. The final aesthetic choice is critical. A heavy wood frame gives a classic look. Sleek metal is more modern. And an engraved plaque with names and dates that lends a formality and ensures the piece really fits their home.
We've talked almost exclusively about weddings. What does all this mean for gifting outside of that immediate context? How can we recontextualize this for other life milestones?
Oh, preserved flowers work as incredibly thoughtful gifts across so many life stages. It's all about celebrating continuity or remembrance.
Let's start with anniversaries.
For anniversaries, the piece already exists, so the gift is about augmenting the story. You can get it reframed with milestone-specific engraving or pair it with a current photo to really commemorate the passage of time.
What about a bridal shower? The flowers don't even exist yet.
That's a tricky one. The best option is often a gift certificate for the preservation service. It lets the recipient choose what they want later, which removes a lot of stress. Or you could give a small, pre-made wearable piece like a pendant. It's a nice nod to the event to come.
And finally, memorial remembrances, a much more sensitive area.
Yes, and this requires a lot of sensitivity and respect. Consent from the family is paramount. The choice often leans toward more discreet formats, like small wearable pieces or intimate shadow boxes for private reflection, not public display. It's about honoring memory, not replacing loss.
This has been so insightful. We've gone from the science of memory anchors to the reality of shipping fragile flowers. Let's just summarize the major takeaways for you, the listener.
Okay.
You now understand the 4 main formats, from flat botanical art to durable resin. You know the cost and longevity trade-offs of the 4 methods, and you get the crucial high-stakes steps for transporting this unique item inside that critical 48-hour window.
Right. And this leads us to our final provocative thought. We focused on preserving fresh flowers, aiming for that 24 to 48-hour ideal. But for many people, they realize they want to preserve their bouquet after it's already been air drying for a few weeks. When it's brittle,
You can still do that.
you can still preserve a bouquet that's already dried out, though the results, especially color vibrancy, will definitely vary. And this raises an interesting question for you to explore. If the ideal is fresh, what creative methods best suit a bouquet that is 100% dried and brittle? And how does your choice of method, say pressing a fragile, already dried petal versus sealing it in resin, how does that choice change when you're dealing with material that's already lost its integrity and is highly prone to shattering?
Something for you to mull or explore on your own.